I mentioned previously how relationship research expert John Gottman, who recorded the interactions of 130 couples in his love experiment lab, got to the point where the first 15 minutes of conversation were enough for him to predict whether a couple will divorce or not with a 91% accuracy. In this video, I want to focus on the signs of divorce that allowed such prediction and also look at it from a trauma perspective, because besides lifestyle, values, and personality differences, most conflicts are fueled precisely by unhealthy ways of relating learned in childhood. So here are 6 signs. Number 1, a harsh start in a conversation. It's remarks that are antagonistic, cynical, sarcastic, with a negative attitude generally. Gottman states that although the wife is usually responsible for a harsh startup, the secret to avoiding it is for both partners to work together. So, if your spouse tends to raise issues harshly, the best advice there is to make sure she or he is feeling known, respected, and loved by you, and that you accept your partner's influence. That was Gottman's conclusion. The second sign is what he dubbed as the 4 horsemen of apocalypse, making an analogy to the 4 horsemen in the Bible that bring destruction to the earth in the end times through death, famine, war, and conquest. So the 4 horsemen that predict a failed relationship are criticism about the person as opposed to just complaining about an issue, which leads to defensiveness, which then leads to contempt for the person as the third. And the fourth one is stonewalling. The third sign is flooding, which is physiological and psychological overwhelm, given the 4 horsemen. So, in the process of the interactions, when things escalate, flooding is only a natural response to the situation, culminating in stonewalling as a way of protection. Why people stonewall? It is usually a protection against feeling flooded, and it occurs when a spouse's negativity is so intense and sudden that it leaves you shell-shocked. You feel so defenseless against this sniper attack that you learn to do anything to avoid it. So hypervigilance sets in. There is a difference between men and women's biology when it comes to this. Research shows that men are easier overwhelmed by marital conflict. They get flooded faster and the effects of it last longer. So in 80% of marriages, men are the stonewallers. So when a man walks away or disassociates, that's what they are doing. They are protecting against this flood of emotions and all the physiological signs. That leads to the fourth sign, which is the body language. As a result of this overwhelm with emotions, there is an increased heart rate, increased stress hormones, increased blood pressure, and there are 2 reasons why this leads to divorce. First, there is severe emotional distress that leads to, second, the impossibility to have productive problem-solving discussions. How can you expect to improve a relationship in this medium? Here is more. Statistically, if your heart rate exceeds 100 beats per minute or 80 if you're an athlete, you won't be able to hear what your spouse is trying to tell you, no matter how hard you try. So creative problem solving and your sense of humor go out the window. You're left with the least sophisticated response in your repertoire to fight by acting critical, contemptuous, or defensive, the first 3 horsemen, or to flee or stonewall, which is the fourth. Continuing the discussion in this environment will further worsen the situation. So the best recommendation is to call a time out. Take a 20-minute break before continuing. The fifth sign is failed repair attempts. This Gottman calls the secret weapon of happy marriages. So what are these? These are attempts to diffuse the situation by doing a silly thing like showing the tongue so they can laugh together, or saying I'm sorry, or admitting to something. If the other partner does not reciprocate though, or receives that and keeps on defensive, then these attempts fail and things keep spiraling down. To overcome this, here's what you do. You soften your startup, you learn to make and receive these repair attempts. You learn to soothe yourself and each other, and you learn to compromise. And the sixth one is bad memories, rewriting the past for the worse. Because the negativity between the partners becomes so intense as a result of these four horsemen, the partners end up having such distorted memories of the past that it seems like nothing good ever existed. The tendency is to recall everything that went wrong, how he flirted with your best friend at the rehearsal, or how she was late, or even don't recall much at all. By contrast, in happy marriages, even if not everything went well, they remember how positively they felt towards each other, how excited they were when they met, and how much admiration they had for each other. When it comes to hard times, they seem to glorify the struggles they've been through and how those have bonded them together. Gottman says when a marriage gets to the point where the couple have rewritten their history, when their minds and bodies make it virtually impossible to communicate and repair their current problems, their relationship is almost bound to fail without the right help. The partners find themselves constantly on red alert, constantly in this hypervigilance mode. Because they always expect to combat, the marriage becomes a torment. The understandable result is they withdraw from the relationship. Some people live literally by divorcing, others do so by staying together and leading parallel lives. Whatever the route, there are four final stages that signal the death knell of a relationship. The couple see their marital problems as severe, first. Second, talking things over seems useless, so partners try to solve problems on their own. Third, the couple lead parallel lives. And fourth, loneliness sets in. When a couple gets to the last stage, one or both partners may have an affair. This betrayal is usually a symptom of a dying marriage, not the cause of it. Suddenly, affairs started to make more sense to me. And there are many parallel lives caught in a marriage contract that they keep for other reasons than love. For example, religious convictions, children, convenience. But it ain't over till it's over, Gottman says. He believes that far more marriages can be saved with the right kind of help. Gottman used to think that by reversing these 6 signs that lead to divorce, that will solve the problem. So if people learn to communicate differently, to co-regulate emotionally, to get better at reaching out to each other or doing more positive things together, that would reverse or fix a bad marriage. But the statistics show that that doesn't work. When he focused on how the happy couples interact, what he discovered as a result of this study is that the basis of a happy marriage relationship, it's a deep quality friendship that is characterized by respecting and honoring each other. And what does this quality friendship mean? What goes into it? He was able to identify 7 principles that define this friendship, which is going to be the topic of another video to give it proper space because it deserves the proper space. I look forward to share this with you. Thank you so much for stopping and listening, especially if you've come to this end point. I hope to see you in the next video. As always, take care and keep the hope alive.